And if you could just introduce yourself.
I play keyboards in Alice.
My name is Anna Maria, and I am the founder and vocalist in the band Vajra.
What was the initial start?
Yeah, so we all have pretty storied histories.
I was just bored during COVID. Did a little demo, put it out, and it was pretty well received by the community. And
always had a thing for horror punk and stuff.
Something that started with me and a laptop during quarantine, and just like, oh yeah, you know, all those times I said, if only I didn't have to work my job all the time, and now it's like I could have time to do that. Well, now this is that.
All right. And if you could please introduce yourself for the fine folks at home, I'd really appreciate that.
How you doing, daddios and daddiettes? I am Dickie Devil of Dickie Devil and the Deviants.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you coming on our show. And I just wanted to start things off by saying that I really enjoy your music. I first heard your guys' stuff from Dan's compilation over at We Are Horror Records. I heard one of your guys' songs on the first We Are Horror Punks Not Dead compilation, and ever since I heard that, I loved it. I went over, I found you guys on Facebook and have been following. So for me, this is a real pleasure. I'm genuinely curious. How did this whole project start for you?
Well, first of all, thanks very much. We appreciate the support, and shout out to Dan as well from We Are Horror Records and that Horror Punks Not Dead compilation. That was a blast to be a part of. A lot of great bands on there. How did we get our start? Well, as kids, me and the other Deviants, growing up in Deadsville, we dreamed of being rock stars, but that's, you know, the kind of thing that's unobtainable being from the wrong side of the tracks here in Deadsville. So we had to go the old cliche route and make a deal with the devil to get our fame and fortune and stardom and whatnot. But of course, nothing ever works out as planned, and we kind of knew the devil always has a back door, so we had a back door ourselves. We wound up going down to the crossroads to meet him, and when he showed up with that special guitar, the boys jumped out of the bushes. We jumped him. We kind of roughed him up a bit. We took the guitar, took off. Little did we know he would track us down and make us sign the deal that would put us in Deadsville, where now we do his bidding, and we are his world touring band on a mission to spread his evil gospel.
Well, that's awesome. Sorry about your soul and all, but that's a great story. So since you've been playing, what are some of the artists and musicians that have really inspired you to, you know, write the way that you do and the type of music that you write?
Well, we started playing around 2019, I guess the end of 2019, and I won't give away my secret identity, but I've played guitar in bands before, and I've sang in bands before, but I've never done both before in the same band. So I decided I wanted to try and write a couple things and kind of learn how to play and sing at the same time. And when I did, I was like, oh, I wanted to write, you know, catchy. I mean, the Ramones obviously were a big influence here. Of course, the Misfits, early Misfits, stuff like that. But that was the idea, was just kind of play simple, catchy, poppy punk that would be easy enough for me to play and sing at the same time. And I just really wanted to have fun. I wanted to write fun songs. I'd done angry songs. I'd done sad songs. I've done rebellious songs. I've done a little bit of everything, you know, and I wanted to do fun love songs now. That's where that's kind of how this all came to be as well. So when I started writing stuff and I was actually able to sing and play, even though it was very simple, it was really catchy. And then I grabbed a couple friends who also played in various bands at the time. They were my cousins, and they came in and we did a couple quick recordings of a few songs. And I didn't want people to know it was me. I didn't want people to know. I didn't want people to know my. I didn't want this band to ride on merits of past bands. That's probably the best way to put it. I wanted to know if this music was actually any good. I didn't want people to blow smoke up my ass because of other bands I was in, or because who I was, or doing whatever I did in the scene or anything like that. I wanted the music to kind of have merit of its own, so we came up with these masks. Originally, it was bandanas, and
Mm.
we just had some bandanas on and baseball hats, and we had hoodies and pulled the hoodies up, and we were just like, yeah, we're like undead ninja desperados. Okay, here we go. That was the original. But then when we actually started playing in the, well, actually, so we just released the songs and didn't tell anybody who it was, and they hit. People really dug it. People it connected. This was right before COVID, so I guess people needed something to kind of be happy about, and it was kind of like the right time to do what we did, maybe, and to make a little bit of feel good music when the rest of the world was feeling like shit. Uh, so yeah, there was a connection there, and people seemed to really vibe with it. So we decided to put the masks on and kind of pursue it a little further past a couple songs here and there. And when we did the mask, the original bandanas, man, we sweat so much you couldn't breathe, and it was just a whole it's a whole thing. So quickly, luckily due to COVID, all these neck gaiters started popping up, and so now this is what we popped on. Yeah, COVID came along and stole our stick. We did all this. We had the mask idea right before the COVID thing happened, but then we put on masks and we're like, yeah. And we're like, yeah, we're here. And then COVID was like, yeah, I'm here too. I'm gonna steal your mask gimmick. Ha ha. Now the whole world's wearing masks. Uh, no, we kept them on though. We're still wearing them. It sucks when you're on stage and it's soaking wet and you're like waterboarding yourself because it's hot as hell. But you sweat for your art.
Well, for sure, for sure. I mean, talking about your writing, like you guys have a really like a real, it is pop punk, it is pop, punk, but it's a real like rock and roll sound that I really appreciate. And it's not like rockabilly or psychobilly. It's definitely in that punk vein, but it's a strong like rock feeling, like an old school rock and roll kind of vibe to it that I really appreciate. And I'm just curious, like you said, you wanted to have those other bands, out of the picture, and you wanted to write on the merits of this. What would you say as far as like playing guitar? What would you say would have been your biggest influence that way in the project itself?
So for this one, and we've gone through a couple of different variations of the band. I am the one standing member who's been in every one of the variations. We've only been a band for, so like I said, the end of 2019. So really about 3 years, going on 4 years now. And so many different people have come and gone as Deviants, the different cousins. They find their way in and out. Um, and so the sound has kind of evolved too a little bit over time. I mean, originally, like it was supposed to be a very kind of Ramones Corey pop punk feeling project. But then we had, one drummer left and another drummer came in and he played a different style. So we kind of did take on a bit of a rockabilly feel for a little while. But then he left and another drummer comes in and another drummer comes out, and the original drummer is now back. The original Dewey Deviant is back with us again. So now we back to our, uh, more punk uh, sounding roots and punk sounding drum style, which, definitely helps. But I mean, we cover a lot of our influences too. Like we've done, like Buddy Holly was a big one. Like when I started writing a lot of this stuff, I was like, okay, like the song structure and the style, you know, it was very influenced by the Ramones, but I get a huge influence from the original Kiss as well. That you might hear in some songs like Queen of Monster High, and
Yeah.
there's a couple other ones that are definitely a little more. Graveyard Girls definitely one that's more of a Kiss influenced song, but that old like pop rock kind of thing. Not so much of the hair metalish 90s and 2000s Kiss. And, um, yeah, I mean, we like, again, we wanted to take it back to rock and roll. We call it reanimated rock and roll. We kind of came out of the horror punk thing, but, horror punk seems to have its little narrow, focused niche kind of fan base. So we're definitely not your traditional Misfits sounding or Blitz Kids sounding horror punk band. So, we call ourselves Monstercore, Scooby-Core, because there's a huge Scooby-Doo influence on everything we do here. Yeah, reanimated rock and roll, though, probably sums it up the best because we are giving new life to, raising this old style of rock in a punk party kind of fashion.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And like you were mentioning, with all of those influences and all of the things you were talking about, it's deeply ingrained in the music, but you guys definitely have your own original sound. Like you guys do have the like the horror punk vibe and theme, like you're saying, you're influenced by Scooby-Doo, you're influenced from all of these things, influenced by the Misfits in particular. But like one of the things I really appreciated and that made you guys sound so fresh was I use the term horror punk as more of like a literary genre. So like as long as you're singing about, ghouls, goblins, the undead, whatever, that to me is horror punk. It doesn't matter if you're reggae or folk or, whatever.
Right, right.
That's how I view it. And it's cool to see bands take that influence, and especially bands that are openly like, yeah, I was influenced by the Misfits or I was influenced by whatever, and then go in these directions and evolve the sound in the way that you have. I like you saying you started off, with more of like a punk kind of sound, and then it's kind of shifted and it's kind of going back and forth. But all of those different influences really like help to make what makes you guys sound unique and good. And you talked about structure, and I think you said Billy or Buddy
Buddy
Holly,
Holly, yeah.
right?
Buddy
Buddy
Holly, yeah,
Holly,
yeah.
right?
Mhm.
As an influence on the way that you wrote and structured some of the songs, as well as the Ramones and things like that. As a songwriter myself, that's something that I often look at is like in a band is how good are they at the craft of songwriting. It doesn't matter if they're like incredibly brilliant, technical players or whatever. If they're not good songwriters, I don't care. I don't, you're not going to hold my
Yeah,
attention,
yeah.
and you don't always have to do the like modern pop verse chorus thing. There are different ways of doing it. And I know that like a lot of the old 50s bands, they used to do like ABA, right? And
Mhm.
I noticed in some of your guys' music, that's an aspect, whether it came through the Ramones or Buddy Holly or whoever, that I noticed that in your writing. And I really appreciate that because it's something that brings like a freshness to the music, that it's going back to bring something forward. Like you said, it's reanimating rock and roll, and
Right.
in a really cool and interesting way. At least that's what I think.
I appreciate that. That's what we were trying to do. Another big thing that we set out to do, we noticed that, we go to a lot of live shows. I play, but I also like to go and attend shows. And there's a vibe of kind of judgment and guys standing around. Oh, I just fall in the
Yeah.
back of the room, and there's a lot of, so we decided like it was one of the very conscious decisions that I made with this band was we're going to combat that by being fun and dancey and stuff like that, but we're also going to specifically pander to women because we're going to sing love songs, we're going to sing songs that make the women want to dance. Because if the women dance, eventually the men are going to soften up, they're going to lighten up, and they're going to go, dance with the ladies and have a good time. And sure enough, that's exactly what started to happen when we started playing live shows. We would have women right up at front. The Daddies would all be up front as soon as we would start playing, and they would start dancing from beginning to end. And sure enough, little by little, guys would start to sprinkle in, and then yeah, until by the end of the set, everybody's dancing. So that was the goal. That was like, we missed those days. We used to go to shows and everybody be dancing from, start to finish. And it still happens at some shows, but there's a lot of shows where people just kind of standing around and they kind of
Yeah.
felt like the spirit was like was missing a little bit. There was a little bit of too much I don't want to say like judgment or whatever, but it was just like everybody was just watching. It was all just like there was just there wasn't as much participation, I guess.
Yeah.
So
No,
that was
and
kind of
I
like
completely agree. Like I was going to shows in the 90s and 2000s. That's when I was in like high school and stuff. I got
mhm,
married and I dropped out of all that, and I've recently started coming back to it. But like I remember being at some shows, and like I loved these bands, but no one was dancing. They were doing the thing.
yeah, yeah,
And and
yeah.
even then, I was just standing there thinking like, partially I think it's the type of music, right? Like when you go to like a really aggressive metal show, or when you go to something that's heavier, people they don't do anything. They just want to wait for the circle pit to open, and then they want to smash each other and go up.
Right.
Fine, nothing wrong with that. I want to go to a show where I can pogo, where I can dance, where I can do different things. I'm
Yep.
paying to be entertained and to have fun with my friends, you
Not
know?
to smash my, not to get my face smashed in.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and there's a time and a place for that, and I do enjoy that stuff, but at the same time, it's like I feel like the shift in it was very distinct in, like, I don't know if it was the 90s or the 2000s, where bands shifted from danceable punk rock and rock and roll and things like that to this hyper aggressive, very technical kind of metal sound where you waited for one part of the song to slam into each
Breakdown.
other,
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and that was it. And, and
Yeah.
like and again, like I was saying, there's a time and a place for maybe a song like that, but when you're building
Right.
your whole career on that, like, no wonder everyone's just
Yeah.
standing there. There's
They're
nothing to
all waiting for
dance
the
to.
breakdown, right?
Yeah, yeah. There's nothing to dance to. And like the girls that are there at the shows, they don't want to go up front like they do, like you're saying, at your shows. They don't want
Right.
to dance, because a lot of the time I know some really hardcore women that like would throw down in the pit. And even sometimes when they would go to the shows, they would just stand off on the edges because they didn't want, to wait for the karate guy to come and kick them in the face. And
Right.
like,
Damn
like
karate guy. What are you doing?
yeah, they just it just wasn't fun anymore. And so I think a
Yeah.
lot of people dropped out, and a lot of young kids kind of filled the void or whatever and jumped in, which happens. That's, how
Right.
music evolves and progresses. But, bringing that style back, I'm seeing a lot of bands, even young bands, like young kids in high school, are starting to listen to music from the 90s, early 2000s, when it was still danceable, and even before that, and they're bringing that sound back. A lot of kids in Gen Z especially are they're big into like the early 90s, like punk and alternative and grunge, and a lot of them are getting into bands like Deftones, of all things, which no hate. I
Yeah, yeah,
personally like them, but I think that tied in with the love of Deftones, tied in with a bunch of other stuff, has caused Gen Z and younger kids to really appreciate more darker music, but they want it more dancey as well. That's, at least that's my read on the situation. And
yeah.
so I feel like horror punk is this, and as I've said, broadly, horror punk is this like perfect untapped art form that is just screaming like, pay attention to me, like, we're here for you. We're
Yeah,
ready
yeah.
to dance, we're ready to have fun, we're ready to sing and be melodic, and sometimes if you want to throw down, let's do it too. But but it doesn't have to be that way, and I appreciate that. And that's what I like about your guys' music. I've never had the pleasure of attending a live show, unfortunately. Someday I'd like to. Maybe I'll fly out there and see you guys.
If
But
you're ready, put you
until
on the
that
list.
happens, I've been watching you guys, like some of the live videos you put online, and your shows they look like a blast, like a whole performance. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Like, what inspires like the way you guys do your stage performance and everything else?
I mean, a lot of that, I, I just dance. And I'm like the sloppiest guitar player because I can't stand still when I start playing because the music just makes me want to dance so much. Real quick, just to touch on something you said before, just because again, like there's a lot of the hardcore breakdowns and all that, and like you were saying, there's a place for it, and I agree. It just felt like that was taking up everything, and there wasn't as much
Exactly.
of what there wasn't as much of like fun dancey kind of punk and stuff like that getting out there. So uh, that was another reason we went this way, was there was like a void that needed to be filled. I felt like that there was enough people doing that stuff and doing like I said, the angry stuff and the rebellious and everything else, and the heavy, the hard breakdowns and everything else. It was like, okay, well, plus I just love rock and roll. So
Yeah, yeah.
the thing that mainly so we drew a lot from obviously the Warriors was a big inspiration for like our stage where we kind of did like an undead gang baseball team thing with the whole Deadsville, and little by little, it all like the lore just grew and morphed into this whole thing, and now we have a whole universe with of town, the fictional town of Deadsville, and we have a characters, many characters that appear in our music videos, and we've already released the sitcom pilot once, but we rebooted it, and now it's in post production. Now with Kane Hodder as our Doggy Deviant puppet voice. That plays a lot into it as well. We have Doggy live with us. His puppeteer will show up on stage. We'll bring him up with us and sing along. And shout out to Maddie Meek, our puppeteer. Steph Infection is always at our shows, and a couple of the songs were written to her early on, and to kind of tie into the Deadsville lore. And she does a lot of promotion and work behind the scenes here, so we like to make sure she gets her proper credit. And she's always at the shows making sure everything runs great. She's like super friendly. If people that do come to shows, she takes pictures with everybody. She's super nice. People are always come out and they're like, "Oh my God, your Steph Infection." And she's kind of, we get kind of blown away by it sometimes, to be honest with you. Like we went to Ohio this year to play in January at the beginning of the year. We had a canceled tour with the Zonoids last October. Stuff got pushed around, and we wound up doing like 3 days in January. And we went to Ohio in the middle of a snowstorm, and we played this place. We've never been to Ohio. We've barely been out of Pennsylvania at this point. Sorry, Transylvania at this point. And we get up there, and the owner and everybody's there like, "Oh my God, we watch your videos. Oh my God." They're like freaking out. And they know Steph, and they know everybody. They know all the characters. And I'm just like, wow, this is a little wild, but it's just cool. And that allowed us, we played that show in January, and they were like, "Hey, why don't you come back and let's do like a festival?" So we wound up bringing Slasher Fest there in August this summer, and it was great, man. We had a huge turnout, and once again, people, Doggy was there. People take pictures with the puppet, with Steph, the whole like Deadsville crew, and everybody's kind of part of the show.
Yeah. Yeah, I like I've had, like I said, I've had the pleasure of seeing some of the videos of you guys performing live, and like you guys just kind of going crazy up there on stage, and like you're saying, having everyone there and meeting everyone. So you mentioned like when you went out there, you were surprised like that people knew who you were and they were excited and everything to see you. Well, I'd be curious to hear you talk a little bit more about that, because you guys make high quality music. What was it that was surprising to you? Because honestly, like I wouldn't have been if I was you.
um, I mean, like the video thing was really, people keep talking about the videos. They love the dog, they love the videos, they love Steph, they love the whole, this whole Deadsville thing. So, and that was more what kind of, I mean, let's face it, music is a rough sell these days. This is,
Yeah.
it's a streaming world where music is throwaway to a lot of people. It's like secondary. Nobody cares. It's like the background noise while you're watching a video. You know what I
Mm.
mean? So it's when we got out on the road, and people came to us, and they all love the music. Uh, you know, uh, that's why they're coming to shows, obviously. But they all were talking about the videos, seeing the videos, loving the videos, like connecting with the Deadsville brand. That was kind of like, yeah, I was like, okay, this is what we need to kind of put some, keep focusing on these videos and keep focusing on the content production too, because it's like our manager Ronan often says, the you have to evolve. The old way of doing things is dead, and you've got to find a new way to make people care about music, to make people care about your product, to make people care about your brand. And if you look at like kids on TikTok, these and like YouTube and SoundCloud rappers and stuff like that. These are just kids in their bedroom, and they're doing stuff on their laptops, but they're consistently putting it out there. And yeah, there's going to be some good stuff out there, but they're getting it out there, and that's how they're getting noticed. That's how you're getting noticed. It's so hard 3 years plus as a band, and we've been through how many members? It's so hard to keep band together, to keep,
Yeah.
3, 4, 5 people all focused on the same goal. Especially when life gets in the way, people have families, people have wives, kids, whatever the case may be. It's tough, and there's no money in music these days, so it's a really tough sell unless you're a tribute band or a cover band that's out there playing weddings and stuff for a couple grand a gig. Not an original music band taking a door split of the local club where you might get 30 or 40 people through the door if you're lucky on a Friday or Saturday. So it's a vastly different landscape. So going to these other places and seeing how people connected with the videos and made them, that was like really why they were really excited to see us. Because yeah, listening to the music is one thing, but when you see the content that we put out, and I do it too. Like I go and see like comedians who I follow on TikTok when they come to town, and then I go and meet them in person, and I go and I crack up at their shows, and it's just like there's more of a connection there. I feel like I know him better than just like I bought his comedy album, and listened to it a ton. Like I see his videos every day on TikTok or YouTube or wherever it is that he's posting his videos, so I feel that connection a lot more, and I think that's where, and musicians hate it because musicians just want to play music. That's been the reason we've lost some band members, because musicians come to just play music, and then all of a sudden we're like, yeah, well, we got videos lined up, and you got to act on the sitcom, and we got to shoot this day, and we got to clear your schedule. We got to talk to this puppet, and they're just like, I didn't sign up for this. I just wanted to play music, man. And I'm like, okay, well, I need actors who want to play music too, because this is what we're doing. Because this is like what we see as our path to follow at this point. This is the way things are. I mean, it's like, and it's not totally foreign. The Monkees did it in the damn 60s, like, but they weren't a
Yeah.
real band. They were just some guys that were put together. We're a real band that actually put the show together. They were a show that put the band, the Monkees, together, and it was just like a whole like one of those like boy band type things at the time that they manufactured it. But we're an actual band that makes a TV show, so hopefully that has a bit of a more authentic sell to it. You know what I mean?
For sure. What do you think it is about visual music, whether it's bands like the Gorillaz or Death Clock or things like the Monkees or even you guys, what do you think that draws people towards that kind of like the visual aspect in addition to the music?
I think there's more of a connection there. I guess. Music, it's like a personal thing, and it's very open to interpretation. Songs can mean different things to different people, and music's always going to hold that emotional attachment for us. But I think the attachment to the artist comes from connecting outside of the music, and that's what we see nowadays. That's what like when you watch the TV show in the 60s, like the Monkees. Sure, they're playing characters. I'm sure they weren't that goofy and wacky in real life, but you felt like, man, if you went and hung out with these guys, they would be some fun guys to hang out with. Like just the vibe that they gave off through the TV show, it just gave you a little more than just the music. I mean, even with Kiss being one of our big influences, they were so much more than just the music with the theatrics and everything else. And they made a movie back in the day, and it was terrible, but still it was done. There were a lot of terrible movies being made. There's still a lot of terrible movies being made, but it was done. And that was another thing that, like, I remember as a kid, watching the Kiss movie and just thinking, man, I like that just connected me even more to the band. I got to hear them talk for the first time. Like we didn't have the internet back then, so you can like go just bring up a interview on YouTube and listen to, what Paul sounded like, but you know what Ace or Peter Chris sounded like, because they never let them talk. It was always Paul or Gene talking. So when you watched Kiss Meets the Phantom, you were like, oh, that's what Ace sounds like. That's what Peter Chris sounds like. That's what these guys all sound like when they're talking. And this is like, and they each had like a little bit of personality. So it just did a little bit of more to connect you to the band. And with music videos, I feel like it's like almost a forgotten art these days. A lot of them, because back when MTV was big and the music video was in its heyday, that was how that's where big time directors all started out making these cinematic music videos. And you used to do these like really big cinematic music videos as like your proving ground. And then you would move on to bigger. That was like your short film. You Spike Jones and all those guys. They were like shooting music videos for the Beastie Boys and all, these different bands back in the day. And then they would go on to direct movies. And then, Guy Ritchie, all those guys would, that's how they started out. Now you don't have I mean, at least I haven't seen as much emphasis on the big budget music video, the more cinematic music video, because nowadays you could just do them on your phone yourself in your room as a TikToker, and that's what everybody's paying attention to. So, bands, if you're not going to make music videos, you better be doing some of these reels and TikToks and stuff like that. And if you're not going to do the TikToks and reels, you better be doing some music videos or some of the, like do something to give some kind of visual connection, to give more than just I'm a musician and here's my music, because people just want more. Everybody wants more than that. People want more. That's just the way it's human nature. When I loved a band, I couldn't get enough of it. Like when I was young and I discovered a band, I'd be like, man, where's more? I need more of this. So if the bands that are going to go to the forefront are the ones that are giving people content, doesn't have to be an album. You don't have to keep writing new songs. So you could even just like save all the behind the scenes footage of making your recordings, joking with the band, other stuff like that, where they like people can see behind the curtain kind of, like a peek behind the scenes. People love behind the scenes stuff. So, if you're smart as a band and you go and you do your records, you can make it all about the music, but then you hire one guy to be your videographer and just do all your behind the scenes videography and just catch some funny stuff on camera and put it out there so that people that love your music can see what kind of people you are and connect with you even more. That makes them want to come see you more. Sure, they might love the music, but when you go to that town for a show, what do you think's going to make them want to go? 'Cause it's tough to get people out at shows nowadays, too.
Yeah, for sure.
So you're going to have better luck if, hey, they listen to my song all the time, so maybe they'll come out to the show, or they comment on my reels and my TikToks or my whatever, my Instagram posts all the time. That person's probably going to come to the show because I have like, and we have like a bit of a, and you see it like some of our contemporary bands and bands, like a band like the Jasons that's been around for 10 years now, and who we are friends with and we take a lot of inspiration from as well. Great guys, great friends of ours, great musicians, and really good at evolving into what needs to be done in this day and age. They have videos, they're always on Instagram doing live stuff. They're funny, they're engaging. They'll show you like behind the scenes recording and stuff. They're constantly posting stuff. Even if it's just something simple, it's consistent. So they're always staying engaged and they're always like responding to their fans. And yeah, if you feel more like a friend. So when that friend shows up in town when they're on tour, you're going to go out and support them. You're not just a fan, you're a friend. You're somebody that they talk to, you're somebody that they know, they recognize you because you're online and you guys, there's so easy to connect nowadays. That's how you see, like, it's easy to do. If you stay hidden, the people aren't going to come out for you. If you get out here online, everybody's in their phone every day, all day long. So you're out here putting your face out there and they're seeing your face and you're making them laugh or you're making them happy or your music's making them, help them get through the day while they're seeing you. You're gonna connect better with them and they're gonna come out and support. I think they'll be more likely to, at least. That's my theory. We'll see.
Well, I mean, it seems to be working for you guys for one, and for two, I actually happen to agree with that theory as well. I've always thought that for one, the more theatrical bands are the more interesting. Like you mentioned Kiss, and obviously people think about the Misfits, but I'm thinking also about bands today like Ghost. What, love them or hate them, Ghost fans love Ghost, and they go to those shows and they're there and they know everything about the backstory and the lore, and they have a great relationship with the band as far as like you can with the band.
Well, with the videos, it's a perfect example because in between releases of music videos and tour and stuff like that, they do the whole they have the whole lore with the videos, a couple minute videos with the papas having meetings and all that kind of stuff. And there's the different papas being killed off and the new ones coming in, and they're very engaging. They get it. That's exactly what we're talking about with you've got to have more than just your music to connect with people. You have to give people something more in this day and age when everybody's in their phone, looking at their phones all day. You've got to be able to connect more. A perfect example is Ghost.
So do you think that this kind of thing evolved out of like in a good example would be like the Kiss Army, right? Like you sign up for that thing and you get all the emails and the letters,
Yeah,
I guess letters back then and stuff like that. And then like the two things that kind of come to my mind are obviously bands have always been engaged with their fans to one degree or another. But again, I think about when I think of this kind of thing, the Kiss Army, and I think of like the 80s hardcore punk bands used to have like real strong street teams that would run out and they'd post flyers for them everywhere before the
yeah,
internet.
yeah.
And I think of kind of like those two things when I'm hearing what you're talking about. But like you said, it's a different time, it's a different, medium, and so people are switching to TikTok, and it's easier for you to build a following, for any musician to build a following, as long as they are willing to do the work to engage. And like you said, you're looking for actors that are musicians but are a real band. And like
Right.
I think that's really cool personally, like because you are like you said, you have these cool videos that you've put out and this whole lore and this whole world that you've built around the music that does draw the fans in. I came into it, like I said, from that record, but when I found you guys and I watched the video for, it's the one with the flying saucer. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
The Humans Run Run
yeah, that song,
with
the
Kira from
the
Galaxy Has Eyes.
yeah, that whole video had me dying laughing from like start to finish. And I was like, okay, we're gonna check out other stuff from these guys too. And then you guys, I saw a call out for your fans to get involved in the process, where you guys were doing asking for videos of for Goth Girl, that
Yeah.
song. And I remember thinking like, okay, this is a really cool back and forth you guys have all going on.
We still have to do the Oh My God video. We didn't get a
Yeah,
whole lot of submissions. I know we had a lot of girls that I think people don't understand that most of your phones nowadays film in 4K. Like
yeah,
everybody's phone films because we had people like, oh, I can't get a 4K. It's so because to edit you want high quality video for Ronan does all our editing, so he needs 4K video. But I think people don't like it. It's not that hard. You just turn it. It's a setting on your phone. Most phones, if you have an iPhone or a newer Android from the last like 7 years, you probably have 4K video recording on your phone.
for
So,
for
so,
sure.
so if you're listening out there, ladies, and we haven't shot any video yet, you could record. Oh my God, footage. But no, we're gonna go and shoot that next, and we have something planned for it special. My Halloween costume this year kind of gave it away. We were trying to get the video shot before Halloween, but we had some stuff come up and it's just always something. So we're gonna get a shot now after Halloween. So stay tuned because it's showtime.
Let's switch gears and talk a little bit about songwriting specifically. I know we touched on it a little, but I wanted to go a little more in depth. When you guys are buckling down to write a song, let's start with the actual music of it first. What does that process look like? Like, does someone bring in a riff, or do you have a general idea beforehand, or how does that work?
So I write everything mainly because of the rotating cast of characters behind me, so to speak. I don't want to have to worry about issues with legality for copyright, who wrote what song, if so and so left the band, and blah blah blah. And Kiss taught us our lesson in that as well. So I write everything as far as the riffs on guitar and the lyrics go. And then the other deviants are free to play their instruments and fill in, write their parts as needed. I'll give my suggestions to them as to what I like or what I would like in certain spots. But for the most part, I'm the one that's going to put all the songs together. And it's not that the other guys aren't capable musicians. Both of the guys in the band now are excellent musicians and both very capable musicians. But it's just the whole the legal issue, the rotating band members. If they stick around for a couple of years, maybe we'll let them write some songs. But yeah, until then, yeah, I just got to do everything kind of myself, and they
So
kind
where
of
does that come from
fill in
then?
the blanks.
Yeah, so where does that come from when you're writing? Like what when you're starting to write a song, right? Like you said, it usually starts with you writing the guitar and the vocals and lyrics and stuff. But where do you start when you're writing like guitar? Like where do you go to?
So a lot of times, I mean, some days I'll just go into the studio room, plug in the guitar, and play some riffs, just jam around a little bit and see what I like, and I'll have my phone handy and I'll just record it on the voice recorder if there's something that I find catchy, or if there's something that I think might have potential or I might want to expand on. Sometimes I'm just driving in the car and a melody will pop in my head or something will just come to me and I'll hum the melody into the voice recorder on the phone. And then I'll go to the studio later and play it back and be like, okay, now it transfers out the guitar and here it is. And, all right. Sometimes it's the hook will come to me. I used to be very specific and strict in my songwriting, and now I'm just like, I'm open to inspiration wherever and whenever. That's why the phone's handy because I'll make voice notes. I'll come up with some. It'll just be a hooker, just puns. I like double entendres, all that kind of stuff. So plays on words. So if something comes to me, I'll be like, oh, I should maybe play off of this, and this is a like to turn things spooky. So that's another little trick near the trade. We'll be like, oh, okay, keep out. Well, what about creep out? Oh, that's a oh, shit. I should probably make a note. Creep out should be a note to self. The next single, Creep Out by Dickie with the Deviants. You heard it here first, Will. um,
For sure, for sure.
but yeah, and then I'll just mess around with some stuff until something sticks. And usually it'll take a little while. Like I'll play it, I'll record it, just me, guitar and singing. I'll do it a little. I'll maybe make some tweaks before I take it to the band and really decide whether I like it or not. I try not to take everything because not every idea is a good idea.
Right.
You got to know when to edit yourself. Editing is a huge, you got to admit sometimes some things aren't worth pursuing. Some ideas, okay, yeah, yeah, I have a lot of unwritten stuff in the voice notes as well. But if it's something that's like that's usually what it'll be. It's if it's like sticking with me and it's in my head so much that I have to get it out. That's when I know I'm like, okay, this needs to be a song. This I
Mhm.
need to finish, or this I need to bring to the band, and we need to kind of play with this so I can hear it with everybody play. Because usually it's only like the verse and chorus I'll come up with first. That's all we do really. All I'll really have is a couple riffs, chorus in my head maybe, and I'll take it to the band if it's really like sticking in my head and I really feel like it has potential, then I'll take it to the band and we'll jam on it a little bit, try a couple different drum beats, different bass lines, different variations in structure, and see how it shakes out. Yeah,
Well,
so
that's
far so good.
that's really interesting. There were a couple habits that you mentioned that you have that I've noticed when I've been talking to other artists on this show. You mentioned how you might go to a space and just kind of jam there and then like save ideas or whatever. And one of the other ideas that you mentioned was just like keeping a phone on you and recording it or some people like to keep a journal. I'm personally I've been writing one song every single day for an entire year. And overwhelmingly, most of them are garbage. Like you said, you got to know when to not use it. But,
Yep,
but practicing that has overall made me a better writer. And I think it's the same
right.
idea. Like just having that bank of like, you hum the melody or you get this cool hook or whatever and you save it and then you like bring it over later and you kind of develop it. Having those resources there, I imagine they really help, especially when you're like running into a block or something. You can be like, all right, let's take a break, whatever. And then you go through and you listen to something, and you're like, oh yeah, I can totally use that in this, this
Yeah.
part here. But
Yep.
also, I think the most important habit you mentioned was knowing when to edit, when to just say, no, that idea is not working and moving on. It might work later, it might, whatever, but if it's not working at that point, I find that really interesting because you're actually the first person to have said that. I know, it's something I think about, but not something I've heard the other musicians talk about. So, first of all, thank you for sharing that. That's great
Oh yeah,
advice.
yeah.
Do you have any specific habits or anything when you're either writing like lyrics or writing, music that you personally feel are helpful that you would want to share with other people if they were interested in trying to be musicians?
I mean, the biggest thing when I started singing and writing my own lyrics and everything, I felt like everything I wrote was corny. I was like, oh, that's corny. No, no, that's. But I've listened to other singers and other bands, and if you take their lyrics without them singing it, just read them, a lot of stuff's corny, but it's all in the delivery. So if you're confident in your delivery, that's the one thing that I try and tell everybody if they're trying to sing, no matter what they're whatever again, because we're doing the acting thing now too. So it's all entertainment. So but it's all about confidence. All about in the way you carry yourself, and as long as you feel confident about it. I've heard some singers say some of the dumbest shit, but they say it with confidence, and everybody sings right along with them. And it's like, yeah, and just be confident. That would be my number one tip. Number
Okay.
one piece of advice is if you're gonna do it, go all out, balls to the wall, confidence, just do it. But also
Okay.
know when to edit.
For sure, for sure. So, with all that in mind, what of the songs that you've written for this project, every song is a musician's baby. I know that. But what would you say is either the most fun to play or your favorite song that you've written for the project?
Okay, this one, it's probably Oh My God, our next music video. That's probably my favorite one to play. Uh, the ladies love it. We always get girls dancing right at the front of the stage. Goth girls appreciate it. It's goes well over TikTok remix videos. Super catchy. I had and it's only two chords. Simple as you could possibly be. And it's probably my one of my favorite because I could dance a lot too while I play it. Obviously, it's not very technically tough to play, and I like to dance around when I'm playing. So, but it was funny because the manufacturer of my guitar, my Hallmark guitar, Bob Shade, shout out to Bob in Maryland. He loves the music as well. He totally like when I first reached out to him about getting one of his guitars, he had never heard of these stuff before, never heard me before, and I sent him a link, and I was like, "Here's our stuff." I'm looking for a green guitar. I saw you had like dark green ones on your website. They were custom built and all, and here's our stuff. If you dig it, I'd be interested in one of your guitars. Let me know if you have anything in stock. We're like Scooby Doo meets the Ramones. That's the easiest way to describe it. So he emailed back and he's like, "Oh my God, this is great. This is so good. Scooby Doo meets the Ramones is perfect." And he winds up, we want he winds up having this lime green guitar. There's only one of 10. There's 10 of them in the world that are painted in this lime green sparkle. He's like, "Yeah, I have two left, and they'd be perfect for you. I saw what you're playing now. It's the same green." And I was like, "Oh my God, sold. I don't even need to see it." Um, so yeah, he endorses us and he's been super supportive but it's funny because his favorite song is Oh My God too. And the first thing after we sent him the CD and everything, he's like, "Oh my God is brilliant. It's two chords. It's it." And I was like, I appreciate that you appreciate the simplicity.
Well, I mean, and that in its of itself is like a lesson, right? Like I genuinely like that song. I have a lot of appreciation for it. And like I know a lot of music theory, but when that song came on, my brain shut off and I was just grooving to it. Like I like you tell me now it's two chords and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I can hear that now."
Uh-huh.
But like when I was just listening to it, sometimes sometimes super technical playing is cool, but like sometimes, man, when you just nail that right riff and you
Uh-huh.
can do a whole song with the just the two chords, if
Yep.
that's all you need, that's all you need. And like to make a good song, that's what I love in good bands. Doesn't matter how simplistic or how complex the music is. If you're not a good songwriter, it doesn't matter. Like,
Right.
well, I'm still blown away by that because I should have known that after having listened to it. But I'm sitting there like, yeah, two chords. I hear it now.
Less is more. That's
Yeah,
I've
another
written
Kiss
songs
lesson.
with, I haven't released them, but I've written songs with one chord. It's just a variation on your picking, and you can do it all in one. Like uh, but that's where there's a groove. There's that's kind of more, and that's where, again, with the live thing, like I have nothing against technical play, and I totally appreciate flashy technical guitar players and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, when you go and you watch a band play and you see a band playing, if you've never heard them before, you walk into a club and there's a band up on stage playing. At the end of the night, who are you going to remember more? The guy who's flashy? You're going to remember, you're going to be humming, sweep picking in your head when you walk out? Or you're going to remember a guy who used three or four chords and played really catchy melodies and sang like really catchy hooks, and that really like got in your brain. You're gonna leave and you're gonna be humming those hooks. You're gonna sit there going, wow, that guitarist was awesome. But his music's not gonna stick with you. Like the music's not gonna make really an impact because it's all just flash
Mm,
and technique. There's
hmm.
no, I don't want to say there's no heart to it, but it's not something that's going to leave a lasting impression other than, wow, that was impressive to see
Yeah,
here in the moment. Like you're not going to go home 3 days later and be like, man, I really want to hear that song. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
That song
Yeah,
was really catchy. I want to hear that sweep picking again, man. That was really catchy.
the thought comes to my mind of like I know it was really big in the 80s and maybe like a year or so ago there was another band that was really big that was it was all instrumental music, like instrumental, like guitar focused, technical playing rock. And you, man, you have to be so good at that kind of music to get people's attention the same way a good songwriter does.
Oh
And
yeah.
I honestly think that like I can't even remember some of those, I maybe I can remember the band's names, but I can't even remember some of the songs' names or even what what the guitarist said they were about or
Right.
whatever. And that kind of like what you're talking about really speaks to that is like it really doesn't matter. Like these guys, some of these guys are like the best of the best in like technical playing. And melodically they're doing some really cool things, but like you said, you're not going to remember the sweep picking or anything like that. And it's the same problem with the super heavy music too, right? Like you might remember some of the moments, but you're there to hit each other during the breakdown. Like let's be
Right.
honest,
Right.
like
Yeah.
you don't really care about the chorus and like you don't really care about some of that stuff. You might, but in my experience, most of those bands, for one, no disrespect, but they sound like they were all written by the same band. And two, uh if they sound like they're written all by the same band, at least make them well. Like it make them the single from that band, not the like the
The
backup
beast.
track
Like,
that like
yeah, yeah,
fills
yeah.
space on the album.
The
um
filler track.
yeah, and this is coming from someone that like I have a deep love for like post-hardcore music from the early 2000s and things like that. I loved those like the breakdown bands and stuff like that. But at the same time, like if it's just all the same, it's just all the same. We're now in 2023 and I can listen to my local, radio station and they play metalcore and they play all of that stuff on it. And if they didn't tell me who the band was, I swear to you I couldn't tell you who that band was, and I couldn't tell you what album that was on because they literally all sound the same. Maybe one or two stand out, but
Yeah.
that's it. And that's not even counting like the like post grunge dad rock kind of, stuff that's still, going and maintained. Those bands stand out because they at least have good songwriters. They, you may not like the music, but they do stand out because they are good storytellers. They understand how structure works and they don't always use verse chorus, although again, nothing wrong with that. But
Right.
the storytelling thing and knowing how to work a structure and to experiment with that and knowing how to work a groove and like danceability and all that being important. I'm glad to see it finally starting to come back. Like I'm glad that both in your music's in particular since you're here, but in general, just the trend of like you don't have to be the fastest anymore. Like in the 90s, that was a big thing. Everyone wanted
Oh
to be the
yeah,
fastest.
yeah.
I appreciate that. You don't have to be the heaviest anymore, and you don't
Yeah.
have to be the most technical. We're about to that cusp where people are like, let's just write good songs again, please.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited for that. Again, I like all of those things and different elements and different tastes, and I incorporate them into my own writing. But for me personally, I think that what you guys are doing and bringing that back, that like danceable, like actually danceable punk rock, bringing back reanimated rock and roll, as you've said throughout the interview. I think it's for one awesome, and I think it's two really important because rock right now is not doing as well. And I think one of the biggest reasons is because it's gone heavier and more technical and in both and faster a lot of the time. It's not danceable. People like to dance.
Right.
They like to go to a club and they like to dance. That's why people like hip hop. That's why people like R&B and rap. That's why people like Latin music of various genres and things like that.
Even even country music, because they can go out and
Country
dance to the
music,
country music. There's so many
yeah,
people that are like into country because they can go dance to it. I mean, it's
danceable storytelling.
not my
That's
thing, but hey,
yeah,
if you want to dance to it, go right ahead. I'm all for
yeah,
you doing you.
for sure, for sure.
I think a
So
lot with like the metal stuff, it's gotten very niche, and everybody's kind of wants to be like their own little sub genre. And you saw it too in a lot of the punk stuff, but I think the punk has started to get back to more of a generalized overall group
mhm.
atmosphere, where I think that the metal kind of probably needs to go a little more. I've had guys, friends of mine, because we rehearse here at Deadsville Studios, and there's like 8 bands that all rehearse here monthly. So we're friends with all the other bands. There's metal bands that rehearse here. They come out to our shows. They came to our last show with the Jasons at Bar 13, and the first thing the guy said was, he's like, "Man, this is a totally different vibe than a metal show. This is crazy. You guys, it's like inviting, and y'all are dancing and having fun, and everybody's like super chill with each other, and like, he's like, this isn't like the shows that I go to." And I'm like, "Oh well, welcome to a punk show, dude."
Are there any bands that you want to shout out that you think deserve a little extra attention?
Well, obviously our boys in the Jasons, we've been friends with them for years now, play with them. They've had a pretty good name in the scene where we kind of do things for a while, and yeah, they've given us some opportunities to play with them, taken us out with them on some shows. We've, brought them here to our neck of the woods a bunch of times. Every time they come out, we have a great turnout. They were on board as soon as we said, "Hey, we want to do a festival in Ohio." They were like, "Fuck yeah, let's go." So those guys are great. The Galaxy Has Eyes, obviously Kira did the Humans Run with us. She jumps up on stage when we play together live. We play together live a lot in the tri-state area here. They're a great band to see live, tons of energy. People love dancing when they're playing, and she's an awesome performer. Very like old school punk style and vibe. Who else? Mad Splatter, another Philly local, old school, horror punk, pop punk Ramones core style band. They've got a new album coming out. They come here and rehearse at the studio, and we play a bunch of shows with them as well. Yeah, be on the lookout because their new album is on the way. We're gonna head back and do another EP now with the new bass player Danny Deviant. So yeah.
All right. Before we head out, I just wanted to ask, is there any if people wanted to find your music? Now I've mentioned that, I found you guys on Facebook, but if you wanted people to find your music, where do you want them to go to get your music?
Bandcamp is a good spot if you're going to go digitally. And if you want physical, copies. We have CDs you can get on our Big Cartel site. That's hey, Steph Infection, what's the Big Cartel site? DeadsvilleProductions.bigcartel.com. Steph Infection's in the other room eating.
Hi.
And if you want vinyl, we have the album, the full-length album. We got the test pressings, just recently approved them. They're supposed to be here in October. They're running a little behind. Vinyl pressing time is what it is these days. They should be here soon. That is available through littlelostgirl.com or littlelostgirlmedia.com. Athena Athens, shout out to Athena. She's a longtime punk scene member, has done a ton throughout the years, and now she runs a small label called Little Lost Girl. She makes 8 tracks and cassettes and 7 inches and 12-inch vinyl. So we partnered with her. We sent the album out digitally to a few different labels, and she was like one of the first ones to get back to us, and she was just very excited about the music. So we're also big into women and women empowerment and all that kind of stuff. So we were like, hey, a woman run label, and she absolutely loves the music. So yeah, we're gonna go with Little Lost Girl Media on this one. So we did 100, limited to 100 fluorescent green copies, but they'll be available. I think you could still pre-order them at littlelostgirlmedia.com.
Just wanted to say, as we're closing out here, it has been a real pleasure talking to you. Oftentimes when I invite people onto the show, I treat this show like it's my home. And when I invite people onto the show, I may have liked their music before, whatever, but how people interact with me when they're on the show in particular says an awful lot about who they are as artists, says an awful lot about who they are as people. And I genuinely have enjoyed our conversation tonight. And I want to say thank you for being so generous, not only with your time, but being so freely, open to talk about all these intricate things that we've been discussing tonight. So anyways, I won't ramble anymore. Let's close this out. And with that in mind, are there any events coming up in April that you would like to announce, or is there any releases or anything you could think of coming out in April that you would like people to know about?
We don't have anything planned immediately, but April will be right around the corner for summer, so be on the lookout for Slasher Fest again this year. We may or may not be going back to Ohio. It was a good time last year, and they were very hospitable, so that's definitely a possibility. And if you want us to come to your town, maybe with a version of Slasher Fest, anybody out there, you can reach out to Ronan or Steph Infection and pitch us an offer. And maybe we could bring Slasher Fest somewhere near you. Yeah, and I'm sure we'll have music videos on the horizon, and hopefully the sitcom will be out by then as well, the pilot. But I believe we're going to do festivals with that, so it might not be viewable by the public for a little while still.
Okay.
But the
All right.
teaser's out there, so you can check that out on YouTube.
All right. Well, once again, thank you so much for all of your time and for being on here. I really appreciate it. And I know the viewers at home appreciate getting this chance to interact with you a little bit closer. Funnily enough, as we had been discussing throughout the interview.
Right?
Keep killing it, man. I love the music that you're putting out. I really appreciate, everything, the way you interact with your fans and everything that you're building. And it's going to be cool to see how far you take this and how long you go. And I'm really looking forward to that adventure, just following along as a fan. So thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Will. I really appreciate you having me on, and appreciate all the support, and appreciate you giving me some time to run my reanimated mouth here.
All right. Thank you so much for staying to the end of the episode. I really appreciate it. My name is William Hamilton, and I've been the host of this episode of Heartfelt Horror here on the Heartfelt Horror Media Network channel. We really do appreciate you guys staying to the end of these videos. While you're here, if you wouldn't mind leaving a like on the video, subscribing to our channel, leaving a comment down below, these little things really do go a long way to helping us, get our name out there and get our show out into the algorithm so other people like you can find us. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, we'd really appreciate it. Also, if you're looking for other ways to support the show, we have a Patreon. The link for that is going to be down here. You can copy that into the search bar and you'll find our page. Our Patreon is for $5 a month. For $5 a month, you're going to be able to help us buy all sorts of new equipment. You're going to help us be able to save up for different kind of developmental processes that we're going to be using to bring you new and different kinds of content besides these interviews. So if that sounds like something that interests you, please consider it. Again, it'll be $5 and the link to the Patreon is going to be down there below. So thank you so much for your time and have a nice day. Bye.